Hello, today we're going to make a different type of mask. With the way that things are going, they are going to be loosening the lockdown rules. But they're saying that everybody has to wear a mask. So after trying out our previous mask is okay for a little while. But if you're going to be working the whole day, this one is much better. It's got elastic for the head. This nose bit covers quite a bit up to your eyes, and this goes below the chin. I've made it in denim, and I'm going to make another one today in another type of denim. I'm getting old pairs of trousers that we don't use anymore, and we're using it. It needs to be a dense fabric. It cannot be a thin cotton, and the weaves have to be tight knit. We are going to use as a lining polycotton. Although this has got a little bit of a weave, we are going to insert a filter. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the filters. The filters obviously are not going to be as good as a surgical mask, but it will always be better than just fabric. This is an extractor fan filter. You can use anything in cellulose. You can use dried out baby towels, baby wipes. You can use Hoover filters. You can use coffee filters. But I preferred something in cellulose because I'm going to insert it in between the layers. So I want to be able to wash this in very hot water. So this one was pretty good.
Or you can even use
there's
interfacing.
many different types of cellulose that you can use. You can even use a thin wadding. So taking the fabric, we're going to cut 2 in the fabric, 2 in the filter, and 2 in the polycotton. Okay, so now we have our pieces cut. It's very important that you do the notches here. This is a pleat that will be on the sides. This very pronounced curve will be the nose bit, and this softer curve will be the chin bit. So now what we have to do is pin them together. So basically, because this is the thicker fabric, I'm actually going to pin these two together. But then with the polycotton and the cellulose, I'm going to put these together and sew them as one. So this filter will be incorporated into the mask, and because it's cellulose, you can actually wash it without a problem. You can put it in boiling water, or you can steam iron it. So what we will do, we will sew at 1 centimeter seam allowance both pieces. So these are now sewn, and what I'm going to do is a top stitch to shift the seam allowance to the side so it's not flapping. And I'm going to do a little stitch close to the seam to keep it flat, and then I will trim this. And on this one, this is the insides. What I'm going to do is a large zigzag with the open seam. So that we can flatten it out. As you can see here, with the top stitch, it's flattened the seams. This one with a straight stitch, and this one with a zigzag. Because this one, we've actually opened up the seam. But in the denim, I didn't want to open up the seam because we really want a tight stitch, and if we open up the seam on this one, we can let through some air or virus or whatever in between. So pushing it to one side and top stitching it actually makes it safer. So we're going to trim down these seams, and then we're going to put together the whole mask. So now that our seams are trimmed, you can see, we're going to put one inside the other, right sides together. I'm starting from the nose bit, which is the very curved pointy bit. And what you need to do is make sure that these two are together. Obviously, it's important to have the seams matching, but we are not actually doing a fashion show. We are doing a mask, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So I'm pinning the top, all layers together, and then I'll pin the bottom. And we're going to sew all the way around at about 1 centimeter. And then we're going to do the same at the bottom. I'm going to join it, pin it, and sew the bottom and sew the top. The sides we won't do yet. We'll do it when we turn it the right way around. Okay, so now I've sewn at 1 centimeter the chin bit and the nose bit, and I'm going to trim it a little bit before I bag it out. But if you check this, before I sewed, what I did is I trimmed down the lining and the filter, because afterwards with the edging that we're going to do with the elastics, it might be too thick with everything that we're going to turn round properly. So I'm trimming it a little bit. And sometimes here, it depends how much seam allowance you leave, you may need to do some notches. I am cutting it very close, so I don't think there'll be any need for notches here. So I'm just going to finish trimming this, and we're going to turn it the right way around. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to push this point out slightly. Okay, so now here is the shape of our mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around, because otherwise it's going to be very fluffy and we want to be washing it. So we don't want it becoming all dismantled. So I would pin and I would top stitch this at the width of the presser foot and at the bottom too. So now we have our top stitch done, nice and neat. And we go to the original notches that we did at the beginning. These two are for the pleats. It doesn't really matter if you put them up or down, but you have to match the notch with the notch. The idea is that you sew a machine stitch across to keep it in place before we put the elastics on. So I'm going to do this on both sides, and I'm going to machine stitch straight across. Okay, so now these are secured down. I'm still leaving the pin in because it's easier for later. But now we have to add our elastics. Now, because it goes behind the head, we need more elastic than the ones behind the ears. So for the top bit where the nose bit is, we have 28 centimeters. And for the bottom bit, we have 24. So basically what it is to put it right at the corner, secure it with a pin, and machine stitch over. We put both the top and the bottom, and I'm going to secure it to the other side at the same time, just going over the mask and positioning it right at the very top And I'm going to do the same, making sure that the elastic isn't twisted. And again, I'm going to sew across to secure these elastics in. With the 28 and 24 centimeters, it already includes your seam allowance, the little bit that's going to be attached to there. So I'm going to sew. So now I've secured my elastics, and we're going to neaten this a little bit. I've cut a little square, well, rectangle. It's about 8.5 by 6. Yes. It's not that important, the size. The idea is that you position this on the edge and fold it over. Try to keep it straight because this has got a bit of an angle, but you have to make sure that when you fold this inwards, you keep this pushed in and keep it straight, at a straight angle, because otherwise it's going to look a bit odd once you sew it. So you also fold the other side, and you're going to sew across with the 2 bits folded inwards. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So now I've sewn across with the 2 bits folded. The idea is that we're going to fold this inwards to make it nice and neat. So basically, you've got to make sure that the sides are pushed inwards, both of them. And then we're going to cut off the excess. I don't like to cut this rectangle too small because otherwise it's very difficult to fold over. So here's where we're going to fold the first one and then down the second one. So I've placed the pins where I'm going to fold the first time, meaning that I should cut approximately the same distance, so we've got enough to fold. So that would be like that, and then like that. This is why from the beginning we actually trim off the filter bit, because otherwise it gets too thick under there. With the pleat, with the filter, it would be too much. So this you can either do by machine or you can do by hand. I'm going to attempt it by machine, but on the right side so that I can see what's actually happening. So here we are. This is basically it. I have top stitched the edge, pushing the fabric in. And if you realize this little piece, I've done it in polycotton because I think the denim would have been too thick to do this type of facing. So basically this is it. This is your mask. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and I hope that it'll keep you safe. If you would like our free pattern, please click on the link below. And if you have enjoyed our video, please give us a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. Thank you.